Hello and welcome back to Subnarrator, where we dive deep into stories of betrayal, consequences, and ultimate vindication. Today, we have a massive, complex story that starts with a simple request and ends with an arrest. This is a story about trust, theft, and the kind of family enabling that creates monsters. My name is Lily, and for 10 months, I thought I was building a future with Daryl. But in reality, I was just funding his double life. I was a reliable, financially stable girlfriend with a nice car and the open wallet, the easy mark. Daryl was the charming, perpetually struggling boyfriend who always had a crisis. When he asked to borrow my BMW last Wednesday morning, running his hands through his hair like he always did when he wanted something, I didn't hesitate. He sold me a compelling vision, a big job interview at a downtown insurance office, a necessary step up from his dead-end retail job at Target. His old Toyota was making weird grinding sounds, and he couldn't risk it breaking down. I was proud he was finally making an effort. I handed him the keys to my expensive, reliable luxury car and wished him luck. That small act of misplaced trust became the foundation of an elaborate, breathtakingly cruel deception that unfolded over 5 days. I was about to discover the full, terrifying truth that I wasn't his partner, I was his bank. And my BMW wasn't a helpful loan, it was a prop for his romantic scam. This is the script of how I tracked him 3 hours north, listened to him mock my love, and then leveraged my father's connections to ensure the consequences he faced were sudden, public, and absolutely criminal. The initial excuses were plausible. Thursday, the interview went well. He needed the car for another round. Friday, they offered him the job but needed him for a team-building weekend at an upstate resort. It was weird, yes, but I brushed it off. Maybe that's just how high-level insurance companies worked. But by Sunday afternoon, a cold, sharp onions began to settle in. I had early client meetings Monday, and I needed my car back. When I pushed back, Daryl's story instantly leveled up. The company was so impressed, they were flying him out to a corporate retreat for final interviews with senior partners. He promised to be back Tuesday. The lie was getting too big, too glossy, too perfect. Daryl had never once mentioned applying for insurance jobs. His complaints about Target were constant, but his job search activity was non-existent. And the idea of an exclusive resort for a job interview jump from retail was absurd. I opened the BMW Connected Drive app on my phone. The GPS location pinned my car to the Ocean View Grand Resort, 3 hours north. The location matched his story, but the resort's name triggered a memory. I remembered Scarlett Morrison, a girl from his college he occasionally exchanged Instagram likes with. My fingers, now cold, found her profile. I scrolled back. Poolside drinks overlooking the ocean. Upscale dinner shots. Then, on Sunday morning, the photo that ripped my trust into shreds. A perfect, glossy, high-contrast picture of a set of car keys on a white marble countertop. The caption was short and devastating. Best boyfriend ever surprised me with this getaway. The key fob was unmistakably mine. I knew every detail of that piece of leather, including the small, deliberate scar where I'd scratched my initials years ago. It was clearly visible. I called in sick Monday morning and started the agonizing 3-hour drive in my dad's old pickup truck. That drive was less about anger and more about a methodical, chilling realization. Daryl wasn't networking. He was on a romantic weekend getaway with his side piece, using my property and my funds as bait. The complex insurance story had been pure fiction designed to keep me passive and silent. The Ocean View Grand was exactly as Instagram had advertised. I found my clean, reliable BMW in the parking lot. It was seeing my car there, serving as a symbol of their perfect, fraudulent weekend, that solidified my resolve. I entered the lobby, walked to the glass wall bar overlooking the pool, and spotted them immediately. Daryl had his arm draped around Scarlett. They looked relaxed, intimately comfortable, and were taking selfies. This was clearly not a one-off fling. I ordered a drink and found a seat close to the glass, taking advantage of the quiet Monday afternoon silence. The space was empty, and their voices carried, loud and clear. I started recording on my phone immediately when I heard Daryl's next words. "My ex is so pathetic and desperate, she'd give me her organs if I asked," he said, showing Scarlett his phone. "Some people are just born to be used. Watch. I'll text her right now asking for more money, and she'll send it without question." Scarlett threw her head back, laughing, asking if I genuinely believed he loved me. Daryl's response was a casual, cynical shrug. "She's too stupid to realize I've been using her credit cards to pay for our dates. Hell, I even use her airline miles to book this entire trip. The girl pays for everything and thinks it means we are building a future together." Every word was a gut punch. I kept the phone steady, the digital evidence accumulating. 15 minutes of him bragging about scamming me, detailing expensive dinners, clothes, and trips I'd unknowingly paid for. It was all a game to him. Then, my phone vibrated. A text from Daryl. $500 requested. An emergency expense at the retreat. His card declined. Needed the money immediately. He was literally 20 feet away, sending me a text while laughing about my gullibility to another woman. I watched him show Scarlett the message before hitting send, both dissolving into sickening laughter. He predicted I'd transfer the funds within the hour. I finished my drink, paid the bartender, and walked out. I drove the 3 hours home in a daze of freezing, calculated rage. He thought he was so clever. He had no idea I held a recording of his confession. That night, I didn't celebrate. I compiled the evidence, 10 months of bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts. The pattern was glaringly obvious. Concert tickets for shows I didn't attend. Men's clothes. Gas charges when I was out of town. He had been funding his entire social life and his parallel relationship on my dime. The next night, Daryl arrived, full of smiles and elaborate lies about his new job and how they should celebrate at a fancy steakhouse. I told him to sit down. The moment his eyes landed on the organized pile of receipts and statements, his face went white. He launched into a frenzy of gaslighting. The charges were legitimate. He planned to pay me back. It was a misunderstanding. The sheer audacity of his lies, even when confronted with evidence, made me physically sick. Then, I played the recording. The sound of his own voice calling me pathetic, desperate, and stupid echoed in my dining room. His immediate reaction wasn't shame. It was aggressive, toxic rage. He screamed about privacy, about me spying on him, claiming I was violating the law by recording him without consent. The argument lasted almost 3 draining hours. He claimed he and Scarlett were just joking, that he was pressured to badmouth me to impress her, and that I was dramatic and paranoid. He tried to convince me that black was white and up was down. When I brought up the credit card fraud and demanded my keys back, he unleashed the worst of the verbal abuse. He weaponized every insecurity I'd ever shared, calling me clingy, desperate, and pathetic. He stated I was lucky to have a man willing to date me, claiming I was damaged goods who would never find anyone else who would put up with me. The final, brutal insult. He said the only reason he stayed with me was because I made his life easier and more comfortable by paying for everything. At 4 a.m., exhausted but resolute, I gave him an ultimatum. Pay back every penny he stole by Friday, or I'm taking legal action. He laughed, confident he could claim everything was a gift because we were dating. He then had the unbelievable audacity to inform me that he'd be keeping my BMW until Sunday for his important meetings. Then he just walked out with my keys. His arrogance sealed his fate. He thought he could outsmart me, but he hadn't accounted for my father. My dad works for the county sheriff's department in fleet maintenance. He knows the system and every contact in it. I called him Thursday morning. He confirmed it. When someone takes your property, and you explicitly demand its return, and they refuse, it becomes theft. Regardless of the prior relationship, it is a crime. Thursday afternoon, my dad helped me file a formal police report for the stolen BMW. Friday morning, the trap sprung. Around 10 a.m., the deputies found Daryl sitting in my BMW and informed him the car was reported stolen. His reaction must have been pure, unadulterated shock. He was arrested on the spot. But the consequences didn't end there. During the search, guess what the deputies found in his wallet? 2 of my credit cards that he had somehow created copies of. Cards I never knew he possessed. The theft charges suddenly became far more serious, escalating to felony fraud. My phone immediately melted down with 17 missed calls and 40-plus texts from Daryl, moving rapidly from confusion to threats to sobbing pleas. I watched his world collapse in real time. Even Scarlett, the woman he'd been with, posted an Instagram story from a police station parking lot. Worst Monday ever. Some people are actually psychos. It looks like she got dragged into the investigation as well. What followed was a relentless, coordinated campaign of emotional abuse and manipulation from Daryl's family. They had declared war. First came his mother, Connie, who called Ed at 7 a.m., sobbing and guilt-tripping for 2 hours. She painted Daryl as a fragile, struggling victim who made a mistake because he was stressed. She interrupted every attempt I made to explain the theft and the humiliation. She used his dead father, his difficult past, and the threat of a ruined future to make me feel guilty. She demanded I drop the charges, arguing that I would be responsible for his descent into failure or crime. I actually started to feel guilty, which speaks volumes about the power of her manipulation. Then came his sister, Emily. Where Connie was tears, Emily was pure aggression and threats. She called me a psycho ex and claimed I was destroying an innocent man because I couldn't handle being dumped. She threatened to call my work, post my personal information online, and blast my business on social media. She claimed Daryl had confided that I was a controlling stalker who monitored his spending, justifying his desperate need to leave me. Finally, his uncle Donald, the family mediator, called to negotiate. He tried to frame the theft and fraud as a miscommunication about boundaries, and offered to pay me back in installments if I would drop the criminal charges. However, he let slip a crucial detail. This wasn't the first time they'd covered up Daryl's theft. They had enabled this behavior for years, cleaning up his messes, college credit card fraud, debts to his grandmother, instead of allowing him to face the consequences. This revelation solidified my decision. I was not going to be another enabler. When the prosecutor called me with an update, they dropped the final, devastating bomb. The evidence seized from Daryl's phone showed messages with Scarlett going back over a year. I hadn't just been cheated on. I was the other woman in my own relationship, while Daryl told his family I was just a casual hookup he was using for money. The family's defense crumbled. Connie called back, horrified, but still found a way to blame me, asking if I had ignored red flags or been too desperate to notice. When my mother overheard the conversation, she stepped in, grabbing the phone and unleashing righteous fury on Connie, ending the harassment with a firm threat of legal action if they contacted me again. The final, pathetic act came from Daryl himself, who rejected a plea deal, insisting everything was consensual because we were in a relationship. He still believed he was the victim. He sent one last text message. You destroyed everything we could have had together. I blocked his number. The final, bitter realization was that he would go to jail still believing I was the villain and he was the tragic hero. This is where the story truly ends. Not with a negotiated settlement, but with criminal charges and total vindication. Daryl will face trial for theft and fraud. His family is now dealing with the public embarrassment and the legal consequences of enabling a thief. The money was never the point. The point was accountability. I learned that the most painful betrayal is often orchestrated by those you trust the most. But I also learned that I am not the pathetic, desperate woman Daryl thought I was. I was strong enough to compile the evidence, cool enough to make the recording, and brave enough to use the law to hold him accountable, even when his entire family tried to break me down with guilt and threats. I chose self-respect and justice over their false narrative of mercy. If this story resonated with you, if you support the decision to hold a thief and a gaslighter accountable, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to Subnarrator for more stories of justice served. Let me know in the comments which part of Daryl's family's manipulation was the most infuriating.